Perfect. So does anybody have questions before we get started? You can also use the chat bar to put questions in if necessary. We'll make sure that we catch that. So that you understand how this is going to work, Caitlin Holder is also on the call with us. Caitlin is our state officer coordinator. She also works with area officers. Sarah is with the NOMCOM. Sarah also works with area officers, and Ms. Relyn Dodd is also going to be helping us with the NOMCOM process. So we have a lot of people who are involved with this, who've done nominating committee for a long time, and who are gonna help put this together. So what we have for you today, this won't take too long. We don't want to take all your evening. We've got a short presentation that we're going to go through, and we're going to try to answer all the questions that you might have regarding this year's nominating committee process. So I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see the presentation on the screen? Perfect. And as I said, if you have questions as we go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. I can't see the chat bar where I am right now. I'll go back and forth and try to check it as often as I can. So if you have a question before I check it, go ahead and make sure that you ask, and I'll answer your question the best that I can. Let me try to make this a little bigger. All right, you can still see the screen? Is it showing up like a presentation? Yes, no? All right, let's not do it that way.
The original one, yeah, that one is.
That's better?
Yeah, that one has the bigger presentation.
Okay, let's do it this way. So again, this is area nominating committee. We're going to be running areas 2 and 3. Thank you for being patient with the process. We were supposed to do this back in August, and unfortunately the hurricanes didn't cooperate with us. And so we had to postpone it a few times, but I think now we're going to be able to get it in. This is scheduled to happen next Saturday, November 14th. So if you missed that email, if you weren't aware of that, make sure you mark it on your calendar. Saturday, November 14th. It's going to start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to run until it's over. We'll talk about times here in a few minutes. We learned a little bit with area 1 and 4 that we might be able to shorten it up for you some, but y'all also have more candidates running than we had in that committee. So that's also going to make a difference. But definitely Saturday, November 14th, don't plan anything on that day. So the calendar that we're going to be following over the next week and a half, this is very important for you. You've been getting emails about this, but if you haven't seen those, you may want to write these dates down just so you have it as a backup. Tomorrow, November 6th, we're going to email you the essay prompt and the creative project. You're going to get both of those things sent to your inbox tomorrow. I'm going to try to get it early in the morning, but you're going to get it at some point tomorrow. The essay is going to have a prompt. The creative project is going to be a little more wide open. Both of those are going to be due before the nominating committee meets next Saturday. We're going to talk more detail about the essay and the creative project here in just a few minutes. By this Saturday, November 7th, you need to submit your campaign videos. You have to do 2 of those. We're going to talk about that in more detail later also, along with your headshot for us to put on the website before the committee process starts. So both of those things will be due by the end of the day on Saturday. You're going to email those directly to me so that we can process them and get them put up. Next Wednesday, November 11th, that essay and that creative project are both going to be due. We're going to show you the email address to send it to and the format that they both need to be in. Those are both due by the end of the day next Wednesday. You have to get them into us by Wednesday because the nominating committee is going to grade both of those prior to Saturday. That essay and that creative project are each going to count as one of your nominating committee rounds. There's going to be a total of 4 rounds of NOMCOM. Those 2 writing prompts make up 2 of them, and we want them graded prior to Saturday so the committee has time to get results in before Saturday evening. So you have to get them turned in on time. If you don't turn them in on time, they're not going to be graded, and your chances of getting nominated are going to be extremely low. So make sure you get them turned in on time. The committee is going to meet on Saturday, November 14th. It's going to start promptly at 8 in the morning. It shows that it's going to roll till 4 in the afternoon. I highly doubt that it's going to go that late. It shouldn't go much later past lunchtime as long as we're staying on time. But those times we'll adjust them on Saturday the 14th as necessary, depending on how quickly we move. The key thing is if you get there on time on that Saturday morning, we'll be able to start on time and we'll get moving with it. Next Saturday, the 14th at 7 o'clock that evening, we'll release both NOMCOM reports over social media. You may have seen how we did areas 1 and 4. We're going to put together a video that'll go out on our YouTube channel, and that's how we'll release the NOMCOM report. The next day, Sunday, November 15th, we're going to do nominations from the floor. If you're not selected by the nominating committee and you choose to run for office from the floor, you'll need to have someone present. You yourself could be present. Someone from your chapter has to be present on a Zoom call on that Sunday, November 15th at 2 o'clock to be nominated. We'll send out a link to all of your ag teachers prior to that so that you'll know where to go. You'll have the luxury of seeing the NomCom report on Saturday. You can think about it, decide what you want to do. If you choose to run from the floor, you'll be nominated at 2 o'clock on that Sunday. So make sure someone's there for you. The next day, Monday the 16th, we'll do first round elections. This is going to be done using our FFA forum site account. We did it with areas 1 and 4. It worked fine. We're going to email a link. Excuse me. We're going to email a link to all of the ag teachers in your area, instructing them where to go. The forum site will be open all day long from 8 to 4. Each chapter gets 2 votes for each office. So make sure your chapter designates who your voting delegates are going to be, and we'll count those votes. At the end of that day, we'll count the votes. If no one for a particular office gets 50% plus 1, that means there's going to be a runoff between 2 candidates. If a runoff is necessary, it'll take place the next day, Tuesday the 17th, during the same time period from 8 to 4, using the same process as the day before. It'll be an online ballot, and we'll send that information to teachers. Once that's done and we have our results on Wednesday the 18th at 7 p.m., we'll put out another social media release that'll have the announcement of the new officer team. Do be aware that for any advisor who wants to run for area advisor, they also have to be nominated during this November 15th at 2 o'clock nomination event. We're going to send that information out to all of the ag teachers also. Any ag teacher from the area is eligible to run. You just have to have someone nominate them. They will also be allowed to do a 60-second campaign speech. They'll email that to me also, and we'll get them on the ballot. Does anyone have questions regarding that schedule? If you do, just unmute yourself and ask away. Whenever I send you emails tomorrow with your prompts, I'll have these dates on it for you also so that you'll be able to follow it. Caitlin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so Mr. Lushern, if you can put into the chat the state officer coordinator email for them to send in their prompts, or not their prompts, but their essay and their creative project, just so it's easier for us to organize this in one email.
Can y'all hear me again? So apparently LSU decided not to pay their internet bill because I just got kicked off here on campus. I'm not sure what's going on. So let me try this again. All right, y'all can see the presentation again? Okay, so tomorrow when I send out your prompts, I'll have the email address that you need to send everything back to. And if you have questions about that, make sure you let us know. So if you don't have any questions about the calendar, let's go on and talk about the nominating committee rounds that we're going to be using this year. So when we say round, for those of you who are not familiar with nominating committee, it means that the particular activity that you're going to have to do in front of the committee. In a normal year when we're in person, we can be a little more creative with this. We would have a facilitation round. We might have activities that all of you would have to participate in. This year we had to adapt a little bit because of the virtual environment. So that's why you're doing the essay in the creative area project. So just to start thinking about this, someone tell us, a few of you tell us, what's one thing you're nervous about and one thing you're excited about in running for area office? Just go ahead and unmute yourself and you can answer the question. One thing you're nervous about, one thing you're excited
about. I'm Caden Conley from the Natchitoches Central FFA chapter, and I believe that I just think that one thing that I might be nervous about is for what this has to hold, because whenever it comes to being an area officer, there's obviously lots of responsibility, and and that's also the thing that I'm excited about, because I really look forward to seeing what all this holds, and whenever it comes to taking on this responsibility, I'm very excited about it, but I'm also nervous on what it takes to be that officer.
Thank you. Does anybody else have an answer for us? One thing you're nervous about, one thing you're excited about. Don't be shy. You're all going to be sitting with each other in a virtual room for a couple of hours next weekend.
Okay. Hi, I'm Cecily, and one thing I'm nervous about is probably the essay, and then just being around, like being virtual is a little bit different. Can I get a raspberry slush and a medium cheddar?
Somebody's in a drive-through line. Cecily, I'm not sure if you were done.
No, sir. One thing I'm excited about is just trying to figure out how this process is going to work and the different things that it has to offer. It's going to be different from the in-person nominating committees.
Yeah, it's definitely a little different when virtual. We have to be a little more creative with what we can have you do, but I think that we're proving that we can still do a pretty good job of getting quality officers elected. So this is the main reason why we're visiting with you today, to help alleviate some of those nerves, what this virtual process will look like. All right, we have time for one more. Does anybody else have a thought they want to share? All right, if we don't have any other thoughts, let's go ahead and move on. So the first round is going to be the essay round. We talked a little bit about this earlier. You're going to write this between tomorrow and Wednesday of next week. We're going to send you a prompt tomorrow. It's going to be a short essay. It's going to be something having to do with being an area officer, responsibilities of being an area officer. All of you are going to get the same prompt. So that the committee is not going to have variation between you. You're all going to answer the same prompt. You'll have to email it back to us by November 11th. Now, something we learned with areas 1 and 4, and this is extremely important, so make sure you take note of it. You have to email it back either in Microsoft Word or in PDF form. We had a bunch of candidates a couple of weeks ago tried to send it to us as Google Docs. The problem is we have an LAFFA suite that we're running Gmail off of. You probably have something different. And when we were getting those emails, we were locked out of it. We couldn't open it. And then we were having to request permission to see it. It was a train wreck trying to read everything that we couldn't see. So it's going to be a whole lot easier for everybody if you just email it to us as an attachment, as a Microsoft Word or as a PDF. The emails that you get tomorrow, the prompt is going to be on a Microsoft Word document. You should be able just to type directly onto that document, save it, and then send it back to us. So that is the preference if you do it that way. Just please, whatever you do, don't use any other format other than Microsoft Word or PDFs, so that we don't have issues accessing them and sharing them with the committee. You're going to email those to this email address, soc@laffa.org. This was an email address that we set up for state officer candidates back in June. We're going to use it with y'all again. So you're going to email your essays once they're complete to soc@laffa.org. They're not due at any particular, well, actually, I take that back. I believe they're due by 8 p.m. on November 11th. You'll get that in the email tomorrow. So make sure you get it to us by the deadline so we can get it to the committee to be graded. Does anyone have questions about the essay? They're not going to be extremely long. You're not writing a book, but we do want them grammatically correct, and we want you to give us some good creative answers on them.
So whenever it comes to the essay, it's only the written part. There's nothing with speaking or anything like that.
Correct. The essay is just a written document you're going to send back. Your speaking ability will be evaluated next Saturday in those 2 rounds. Good question, though. Does anyone else have any questions? All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How long it has to be the essay? Like,
I don't remember off the top of my head. I can pull it up. Hold on one second. Let me reach back in my file and find it. I should have had that pulled up on my computer for you. While I'm looking for it, does anyone else have a question? Hold on, I've got it right here. So the essay has to be no longer than 500 words, single spaced. So that's not terribly long. Are there any other questions regarding the essay? All right. The next portion that you're going to submit to us is your creative project. We're calling it the area program plan. This is going to give you an opportunity to be very creative. We like to harvest good ideas from area officers and from area officer candidates about how to improve FFA in Louisiana. So you're going to get a template in order for you to think of a problem, an opportunity, a program that you would like to see implemented within your area that can increase FFA involvement, that can improve upon a program that currently exists, something that you think we could do within your area to make FFA and ag education better in your part of the state. There's a template that'll be sent to you that'll have a few questions. I believe it's got about 5 questions on it for you to answer. You're going to go down the template and answer those questions in the spaces provided. And you're going to submit that to us also by November 11th. So you'll get that prompt tomorrow, send it to us by November 11th. Same format as the essay. You need to submit it to us on a Microsoft Word document or a PDF. We're going to send it to you in Microsoft Word and you'll email it to the same email address. We were purposefully being a little vague on this. I don't want to give you a specific prompt that you're answering. It's just to get you thinking about something creative that could be done in your area to make FFA better. And when you see the document tomorrow, it'll give you some guidance. With me being that vague, does anyone have any questions about it? This replaced the facilitation round that we would normally do for area. We can't have you facilitate a workshop. That's extremely difficult in a virtual setting. So this is taking the place of that this year. Any questions? All right. So next Saturday, once you actually come in front of the nominating committee, there's going to be 2 rounds of questions that are going to take place. The first one will take place starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's going to be the personal panel round. And during this round, once you move into the room, you're going to have 5 minutes to answer 3 questions in front of the entire committee. You'll have 5 minutes to do that. Whenever your time is up, it'll be called and you're going to be moved out of the Zoom meeting. You'll come back for the second round. So it's the personal panel round. And Caitlin just texted me some examples. These are some things that you commonly could be answered. I'm not saying this is what they will ask you, but these are some sample questions of what you could get during a personal panel round. So it could be things like, tell me about your SAE, or what's your definition of service? Those are things that you could get during the personal panel. They could ask you things about your FFA experience. They could ask you questions about times that you succeeded, times that you failed. They're just going to want to know more about you and ask you questions to find out how much you know about yourself. So you get 5 minutes to answer those 3 questions. Every candidate is going to get the same 3 questions. So it's not going to be personalized questions to each one. You'll all get the same 3. Does anyone have questions on that round? If there's no questions, we'll move on to round 4. This will be the final round. For areas 1 and 4, we did this after lunch. If we're moving along quickly enough, and round 2 finish or round 3 finishes up early enough, we may just set an earlier time for you to come back so we can try to have the whole thing done before lunch. That'll free up the second half of your day, and it'll give the nominating committee a little more time to deliberate. But that's just going to depend on how quickly we move through round 3. So we'll let you know on Saturday of next week how we'll approach it. But the last round is going to be the advocacy panel round. In this one, you're going to be moved into the room. You'll have 5 minutes to answer 3 questions, but this time each question is going to be based on FFA, ag education, and the agricultural industry. And once your 5 minutes are up, you'll be moved out. So some examples of an advocacy question for the FFA part, you could be asked something like, can you explain the meaning of the FFA motto? That's a question related to FFA. For the ag education part, you could be asked a question such as, what are the components of the 3-circle model? And for the ag industry component, you could be asked a question like, what should someone do if they want to advocate for a local ag business? So those 3 questions are going to be specific to the 3 parts of agriculture and agricultural education. It's designed to test your knowledge on FFA, to test your knowledge on ag teaching, and also to test your knowledge on the ag industry in the United States and in Louisiana. This one was adapted in a normal in-person nominating committee. You'd spend more time with an expert in each of these 3 areas. But again, in the virtual setting, it was a little more challenging to do that. So we're going to have you answer those 3 questions in front of the whole committee. Does anyone have questions about the advocacy panel? And I believe Miss Relyn Dodd has joined us, and I think Sarah has come back into the room also. So ladies, if y'all have anything you want to add as we go, please feel free to jump in. Does anyone have questions in general about the 4 rounds upon which you're going to be scored?
So whenever it comes to whenever I see it keep saying you're going to be moved to, let's say, the nom-com room. So does that basically mean that you're going to be put in a separate Zoom call?
Won't be a separate Zoom call, but we're going to have a breakout room. So just like earlier when I was moving the nominating committee out and I was putting them in a breakout room, we're going to have a breakout room set up for the interview. So every one of you are going to meet together like we are right now. We're going to have a breakout room set up, and when it's your turn, a notification will pop up on your screen that'll invite you to join the breakout room. You'll click on it, and it's going to put you in front of the nominating committee. And,
Okay.
then once your round is done, you're just going to leave Zoom until it's time to come back for the next round. Good question. Does anyone else have any questions? Could be technical, logistical, anything at all. I'm assuming, and maybe I shouldn't assume this, but I'm assuming that at this point, most of you are probably familiar with Zoom. It's been a pretty common platform since the start of COVID. If you have not used Zoom before, I am more than willing to visit with you next week. Just have your ag teacher reach out to me. We can get online together and test out the technology, make sure your internet works, let you play around on Zoom, move you around. I have no problem doing that if you need some help with it next week. Does anyone else have questions before we move on?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Grace Manuel. I'm from Flooring FFA chapter. Are all the rounds going to be scored the same?
I've got Sarah and Ms. Dodd on here. They can better answer that. When you say scored the same, what do you mean? Like, are they looking for the exact same things in each round? Is it worth the same amount of points? Can you clarify what you're asking?
Yes, sir. Are they all worth the same amount of points, or are they different?
Sarah or Relin, can
Hey.
you clarify that?
Can y'all hear me, Mr.
Yes,
Luzerne?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the rounds, they're all very close to the same amount of points. It ranges kind of from about 40 points to 50 points per scorecard. So if you have 5 people on your committee, each person would be able to give you 40 or 50 points max. Some of the rounds have a few more competencies on them, some have a few less, but they're all scored off of certain areas that you're supposed to hit in those rounds, and they kind of range depending on what round you're specifically in.
So kind of to like add on to what Relin was saying. So for example, in your panel interview, you're not just going to get like a score out of 5 on your overall panel interview. What they're going to do, I just got done meeting with the committee. So what they have in those scorecards are individual competencies. So you're going to be getting scored on different things for that interview. So like one of those could be your communication, one of those your maturity, your career success, your energy, your passion. So each round, it's not like you're just getting scored for your overall performance, but they're looking for very specific things in each round.
Grace, does that answer your question?
Thank you.
There's definitely a method to how this works. We're trying to really dig down deep and assess you to find out how you are as a candidate. Does anyone else have
Thank
questions?
you.
You're welcome. No other questions? Caitlin, do you have anything to add on to this part?
No, sir, but I do want to just, well, I guess not for the non-com portion, but just for rounds in general, a tip or like a piece of advice is, be really thoughtful with your program project, be really thoughtful with your essay, and then spend some time between now and nominating committee day, just like reflecting on your strengths. Think about like stories that you could tell the nom-com to kind of get your point across, just stuff like that.
Thank you, Caitlin. So let's move on now and talk about guidelines for your campaign videos and the security procedures that we're going to follow during the committee process. So by this Saturday, November 7th, everyone has to submit 2 campaign videos. One is 60 seconds, one is 30 seconds. Both of them are going to be very similar in format. So at state convention, if you were running for office and that you had opposition, you'd have to stand on stage and give a campaign speech. Clearly, we're not standing on stage in front of anyone, but we still want to give you the opportunity to present yourself, to advocate for yourself as an area officer candidate. So you're going to send us a recorded campaign speech. There's a few guidelines that you have to follow, and you must follow these guidelines. There won't be any exception to them, so pay close attention. You have to be in official dress, and it needs to be proper official dress. If you're unsure if it's proper or not, ask your ag teacher and make sure that you're in correct official dress to be on camera. You need to stand in front of a solid background. So when we say a solid background, that could be a brick wall. It could be a plain wall. I had some candidates from Area 4 stand in front of a garage door. Doesn't really matter what it is. It just needs to be a plain, solid background. You can't have pictures behind you. You can't have plants behind you. It can't be painted different colors. It just needs to be a plain, solid background. If you stand in front of a wall at school, that's just solid colored. If you stand in front of a brick wall, that would be perfectly fine. But just make sure it's a solid background behind you. It needs to be you and only you in the video. So absolutely no props. We had one candidate a couple weeks ago. We had to have that candidate redo a speech because she held a notebook to start her speech, and she was pretending like she was reading off of, then she threw it. You can't do that. No props. There can't be anybody else in the video other than you. No animals, no music, nothing else. Just you looking into the camera, giving your speech. You're going to record 2 of them. You're going to email both of them to my LAFFA email address. So it's clejeune@laffa.org. I need them by Saturday evening. As long as it's dated by Saturday, that'll be fine. One of them needs to be 60 seconds. The other one needs to be a 30-second runoff speech. They can be absolutely no longer than those. If this was at state convention at 60 seconds, we'd cut your microphone off. So you have to time it. If you send me a speech that's 61 seconds long, I'm just going to clip the last second off of it. So if you go for 70 seconds, that last 10 seconds, we're going to cut it, and it's just going to cut you off mid-speech. So make sure that you go no longer than 60 seconds for your campaign speech, no longer than 30 seconds for your runoff. You have to send both of those to us because we don't know right now if you're going to be in a runoff or not. You don't know if you're going to need a campaign speech or not, depending on who decides to run off the floor. So send both of them to us so that you're prepared. Please do not mention an office in your speech because of the nature of virtual. And since we're not doing this live on stage, you don't know right now what you're going to be nominated for. There's no way to know that. So don't mention that you're running for area president. Don't mention that you're running for area secretary. Don't say that. You can say you're running for area office, but don't mention a specific office in the speech. And then finally, when you set up to record, please make sure you hold your camera horizontally. So I don't know if y'all can see me anymore, not on the screen. I don't know if I'm blacked out. I don't think my camera's working. Make sure you hold your camera horizontally whenever you film. So what that means is it's long side is side to side. Don't hold it up and down because that gives us a much better quality speech whenever you're doing vertical and it looks better on a screen. And I see we have a question. Someone already did campaign speeches, did it vertically. If you want us to keep it as vertical, I'll keep it, but they do look better horizontally if you want to redo them. Definitely prefer them horizontal. They look better. These are going to be posted on YouTube. And so when you put a speech that way, it always looks better when it's held in the horizontal position. Do we have any questions about campaign videos before we move on? That's right. Horizontal, side to side versus up and down.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm Aiden McDonald from Bus City. We're wondering if it has to be, if it's a full body or if it's gonna be an upper body yeah.
I've seen them done both ways. Honestly, they look better when you do it like waist up. You want to put as much of you in the frame as possible.
All right, yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Try to keep your camera straight. I've seen some where they're really off angle. It just looks odd. Just remember that hundreds of people are going to be watching you. So try to present yourself in the best possible way. You can have somebody hold the camera for you. That's fine. Make sure they're not shaking or jerking around whenever they're holding it. And make sure too that you're as close to the camera as possible and that it's quiet where you are. I've heard dogs barking in the background. I've heard other people talking. Try to make sure it's as quiet as possible whenever you film it. Any other questions? All right, if there's no questions on the videos, we'll move on to your headshot. We're going to put a picture of you on the website before you get elected. And then if you are elected, I want to keep your pictures on the website on the area officer page. So you need to send us a headshot. It needs to be an official dress, same thing as the video, against a solid background. The difference this time is you're going to hold it vertically when you take the picture. We want your jacket filling the frame. So waist up, your head pretty much to the top of the shot. Go ahead and send that to us. Again, just you, no props, no people, no animals, nothing else in the picture, just you. If you want an example of this, if you go to our website, I can pull this up for you. Give me 1 second. Let me switch over to this one. So if you go to our website, take a look at the area officer page. These are the candidates for areas 1 through 4. This is what we want your headshots to look like. See how they've got waist up, filling up the frame in official dress. Does anybody have questions on the headshot? All right, now moving on. Let's talk about security. Now, have one person tell me, what's your definition of integrity and honesty? Because this is going to be extremely important in a virtual nominating committee. How do you define integrity and honesty? Any volunteers? Keep in mind, the NomCom likes candidates that are assertive and confident, and ones that are not shy.
Hi, I'm Kanisha Mouton from the Jennings FFA chapter, and I think that for my personal definition of integrity and honesty for our nomination committee would be to be honest in your essays and your speeches and be yourself and don't accept help from your advisors or from other students.
Thank you, Kanisha. Anyone else? One more?
Hi, I'm Grace Manuel from the Flooring FFA chapter. My definition of integrity would be always being yourself and having the pride to do what's right when you're by yourself. And honesty, my definition of honesty would be always telling the truth and being yourself.
Thank you, Grace. I like both of those answers. Keep in mind that if this was a live in-person nominating committee, we would keep you physically isolated inside of a room. We would take you from that room. We would move you to the interview room. We'd be able to check to make sure you had no cell phone on you. You're not getting any kind of help. In a virtual world, we can control for that to a great extent, but there's a lot more trust that we have to place in you as candidates. And there's that honesty and integrity that you have to display to know that you're going to do this in a fair way. So that what the committee sees as your honest effort, and it's only your honest effort, and they'll get to see everyone's effort in that way. So it's really important that you commit yourself to doing this fairly. We want the best candidates to get elected as area officers in Louisiana because that only helps to improve our programs in the long run. And it's the honest and fair thing to do for those that are the most deserving of these offices. So we have a system that we set up way back during the state officer process. We feel that it worked extremely well. National FFA did something very similar to this for the national officer selection process. And I think this is the way to go in a virtual world. So the whole purpose of this is to have a fair process. We've come up with the 3 S's of security. We're going to ask you to do these things from time to time during the NomCom process. The first one is going to be to scan the room. So we're going to ask you at various points during the committee process and before you go into the NomCom room to take your device, to take your camera, and to scan around so that we can make sure that there's no one in the room with you, so that we can make sure that you don't have any resources there to help you while you're going in, to make sure that you're not getting any kind of outside help while you're in your interview round. So we will be asking you to scan. We're also going to ask you to show us your phone. We're going to have you hold the cell phone up and put it somewhere where we know that you can't reach it while you're interviewing. There was one candidate from Area 4. I asked her to show the phone and she literally threw it to the other side of the room, like chunked it across the room she was in. So I'm not asking you to break your phone, but we definitely want you to show it to us so that we know where it is. And then finally, we're going to have you back away from your computer. So we want to make sure that you're not typing, that you're not trying to read stuff off of your computer screen while you're interviewing. If you back up enough, I can fairly confidently tell that you're not getting any kind of help through the computer. I cannot stress to you enough how important this is. There was a state back early in COVID, they had an early state convention scheduled like in March or April. They did a virtual process to elect their state officers. They elected those state officers, and 3 days later, they discovered that 2 of them had cheated. Then they had to go back and change their state officer team. That is not something we want to do. We want to avoid that. It's very avoidable. We want an honest effort from all of you. So please make sure that you come with the highest of integrity, that you're prepared to go through the process and to do it on your own, following these 3 security rules. A few other things. You're going to have to keep your audio and your video on through the whole process. So right now, everyone is muted, so we don't get a lot of feedback. Whenever we're in the nominating committee room, you're going to have to keep your audio and your video on. That way we know that there's not someone in there feeding you answers. That way You can't turn your video off and go run away and study or anything, or have somebody in there with you that we can't see. So you need to be prepared to have that on. If you think you're going to have internet or device issues, please make sure you work those out next week before you come in on Saturday. And like I said, I'm more than happy to visit with you and make sure that it works. We're also going to have monitors in every room. So it'll be state staff will be there watching. We're going to have state staff in the non-com room. We're going to have some in the candidate room with you also, observing, to be there as a help for you. If you have questions, that's what they'll be there, but also to make sure that the process is proceeding fairly. Does anyone have questions on our security procedures? I can answer this for you now because I got this question last time. Once you enter the holding room, you can't have any resources. You can't have any study materials. We're not doing any kind of stand and deliver or extemporaneous speaking, so you won't need anything to write on. You won't need any of that. It's just going to be you sitting in the holding room with the other candidates. It can get a little long, but it's a great opportunity for you to make friends from areas 2 and 3 while you're sitting in the holding room together. Any questions before we move on? Let me check the chat. I haven't looked at it in a little while. We have a question says, is it okay to not bring our phone in the room when we do the interview rounds? I mean, yeah, I'd definitely just leave your phone away from it, to not even be there as a distraction or as a temptation. Just leave it out of the room where you are. Again, before you go into the committee room, we're going to have you show us what's on the table in front of you, what's in the room with you. All right, so we're getting close to wrapping up for today. We wanted to go over with you the roles and responsibilities of being an area officer. Now, I will tell you straight up front that because of COVID, a lot of this has changed, and it's still in a state of change. Our dates for the fall and spring are definitely not set in stone. Some of this has changed over the last couple of weeks, but just know that we're working extremely hard to provide you with a quality experience as area officers this year. And so please just be patient and bear with us as we continue on through the year. In general, though, there are a few things that area officers are responsible for, and we feel that we need to do a better job in our state of preparing area officers, of giving you training, of helping you develop your leadership skills, because chances are a bunch of you are going to be state officers one day, and chances are somebody in this room is going to run for national office one day. And we know that if we start now, you're going to have a much better shot of getting elected to those higher offices if you're getting that training now as an area officer candidate and then as an area officer. So we look at all of you as being of having an awesome opportunity to develop leadership skills that will help your chapter, that will help our state, and that could end up helping national FFA in the long run. So as an area officer, we want you to focus on your own personal growth. You're going to get opportunities to network, to meet with people from around your area, from other parts of the state, and sometimes, depending on where we are, to meet with people in positions of power. We send area officers to Capitol Day. You have a chance to meet with elected leaders, with legislators, with the governor's staff. There's opportunities for you to network with people that can help you in the long run. You also need to be proficient at time management. There's going to come a point where, as life gets back to normal, that you're going to be responsible for assignments as area officers. You need to be able to manage that time doing that. And then a big thing is professionalism. You're going to represent yourself, your chapter, your advisor, your area, and you're going to represent Louisiana FFA if you get elected as an area officer. So it's important that you always uphold yourself in a professional manner, both in person and especially on social media. Social media is something, it's a powerful tool to help us get out the message of agriculture and FFA, but it can also be something that can ruin you. And I hate the fact that that's where life has come, but I'm sure most of you know about the issue with the national officer this past summer, where his social media account got him kicked off of the national officer team. It was an awful situation, but that's where the world is today, that anything that you put on social media is there forever. Once it's on the internet, it's not going away. So you need to be extremely careful how you present yourself on your social media platforms. And then finally, communication. You have to be able to communicate with FFA members, with teachers, and with people not in the organization so that you can spread the message of FFA and agriculture. You have a leadership role as an area officer. Your main one is to empower your members. When you get elected to an area officer position, that responsibility is not just to wear a jacket. That responsibility is to make FFA better, and stronger within your area. And that starts with empowering our membership so that they know that they can be the most that they want to be, that they ever could think that they could be. We have FFA members this year that won national awards. We have FFA members that are excelling at the highest levels. They need to be motivated and inspired to do that. And that starts with our officer team. So you'll have a unique opportunity this year to really show your membership how they can be successful both in and out of FFA. And that leadership also requires you to have conversations with people. We want you to be able to tell the story of FFA and agriculture with industry leaders, our politicians, our government officials, and people in education. You'd be surprised at how many people in the state don't know what FFA is, don't know what we do. You'd be surprised how many people probably in your own school district don't know what your FFA chapter is and the importance and the value of what you do. As an officer, you have an opportunity to lead that conversation. So we want to prepare you to do that this year as area officers. You serve as an advocate. You advocate for the entire agriculture industry. It's the most important industry in the world. Without agriculture, nothing else would exist as we know it. And FFA is the only organization in Louisiana that teaches agriculture every single day to 25,000 students. We're it. There is nothing else in Louisiana that's doing that. So you have an important role to educate people about that fact. You advocate for agricultural education. We have a major ag teacher shortage in this state right now, and it's not getting any better unless we start recruiting more students to want to be ag teachers. So you play a big role in that also, in making sure that ag education in Louisiana can be successful. And then of course you advocate for FFA. You make sure that our FFA programs are sound, they're solid, and that we're recruiting students to join year after year. So some more specific responsibilities this is kind of a little different because we're clearly not in the normal world right now, but if things open back up in the spring, you will do some travel as area officers. There are some conferences that you're required to attend. You are invited to do workshops with state officers once that opens back up. Some of our state officers have done virtual workshops. Some of our state officers have done in-person workshops. It just depends on the school district right now. We want you to be a part of that. You're responsible to be a continuous learner during your time as an area officer. We want to help you be all that you can be and to learn more about yourself and about what you can accomplish as an FFA member. You have to set high standards for yourself. We will have due dates for you, especially once the delegate process comes about in the springtime that you're going to have to meet. And it's extremely important that you're an open-minded officer. It shouldn't require me to tell you that with all that's going on in the year 2020, that if all of us just took a step back, took a breath, and tried to see each other for human beings, if we tried to learn more about each other, we could probably solve a lot of the issues that we're seeing in the world right now. And that takes a lot of open-mindedness. So as an officer, you're required to do that. You're going to work with FFA members that don't think the way you do, that have different political and philosophical and religious and life thoughts than you do. And that's okay. It's not your job to conform people to be in one way. It's your job to represent all of our FFA members. So you have to come into this with an open mind, and then be someone who can advocate for positive change. Change is not a bad thing. We're constantly changing as people. Our organization is constantly changing. We're constantly adapting, but we want to be positive in that change. We want to make sure that we're moving the organization forward continuously and opening ourselves up to more students being able to take advantage of what we have to offer. So we're going to share the calendar of events. Keep in mind, none of this is set in stone. All of this is subject to change at the last minute. Dr. Smith was visiting with ag teachers just today to try to get dates ready for the springtime. So this will give you a general idea of what we're going to expect from you, but I can't promise that any of this is definite or set in stone. These two dates for your area LDEs, as far as I know, are set in stone. This was decided upon by ag teachers in your area. So for those of you in Area 3, your leadership development events are scheduled for April 27th. For Area 2, they're scheduled for April 29th. Now, as of right now, they're supposed to be done virtually. That's what the LSU Ag Center has approved us to do. By April, I have no idea if this could be an in-person event or not. We just don't know. But as of right now, they're scheduled to be virtual. Your responsibility as area officers would be to do opening ceremonies at these events. So as we move into the spring semester, we'll see how it goes, but you can pretty definitely mark your calendars for these two dates if you're from those areas. The only other date that I've got that is scheduled right now, barring some bad COVID outbreak later on is state convention. It is scheduled for June 7th through the 10th in Alexandria. We'll be sending out more information about that as it gets into the spring semester. For the rest of these events, these are the dates that we typically do them. However, we don't have a definite date on them because we don't know if they're going to be virtual, if they're going to be in person. We don't know that yet. But roundabout, you can expect that either later this month or early in December, the state officers are going to do a version of area officer training for you. This will be done virtually. We can't do overnight travel this semester. Too many school districts aren't allowing it. But we don't want you to wait until the spring to do anything. So the state officers are currently planning some version of area officer training. Once we get you elected in next weekend, we'll give you more information about when this is going to take place and what it's going to look like. As area officers, you participate in State Leadership Delegates Conference. That is going to take place in March. It's currently scheduled, and I can give you the dates on it. It is currently scheduled for Saturday, March 13th and Sunday, March 14th. Now, whether that's going to be in person or virtual, I don't know yet, but that's the weekend that we're shooting to do it. That's the conference where you serve as leadership delegates for our delegate process and you determine which issues become committees at our state convention. So March 13th and 14th is what we tentatively have scheduled for you. We normally do area spring CDEs in March. We're trying to figure out how that's going to work right now. We're not completely sure yet. If there is a version of it that takes place, you'd be responsible for doing opening ceremonies. If it's an in-person event, and if it's not a drive-by event like we did with land judging yesterday, you'd also give out awards at the end of the day, but that's a little far down the road to determine what that will look like. And then Capitol Day is currently scheduled for mid-April. If we can do it as an in-person event, we'll let you know, and you'd be invited to participate in that also. So that's the best I can give you right now on a calendar of events. We're trying to get back to some sort of normal with it. It really just depends on your local school districts and what you're going to be allowed to participate in. Does anyone have questions?
Mr. Lejeune, you do have a question in the chat that you could probably answer.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, talking about the creed competition during December. So there was a change was made. The ag teachers in each area, we gave them the flexibility to decide when area LDEs were going to take place. And in areas 3 and 4, because of impacts of the hurricanes, it wasn't going to be possible to do LDEs in December. Some people still haven't physically gone back to school yet, especially in Cameron Parish and Calcasieu Parish. They've had major issues with the hurricanes coming through. And so the teachers decided that the most fair thing was to postpone your LDEs in areas 2 and 3. Area 1 is doing their LDEs on December 8th, and area 4 is doing theirs on February 24th. But they were much less impacted by hurricanes in areas 2 and 3 were. So that's why yours are being pushed later. All of the state LDEs are taking place at state convention this year. So that's definitely a calendar change compared to normal, but it was an attempt to make sure that everybody would be able to participate without any impact or interference from hurricane related issues. But good question. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? Anything at all? If you don't have questions now, you may think of some later. Here are Caitlin and I's email addresses. That's Caitlin's number. If you have anything, feel free to email us. Let us know. We're always here for you. Here at our office, we're back in the office in person most days. Ms. Eton and I are here most days. The student workers are rotating in and out. We'd be happy to help you. We're here for you. We want to make this experience as best as it can be. Keep in mind, and I think anybody who's gone through this process before, even at the highest levels, will tell you that the time that you spend practicing for nominating committee and the lessons that you learn from it, even if you're not elected, that training goes a long way. There's nothing that you're going to do as part of this process that's not going to help you later on in life, that's going to help you down the road. All of this is valuable going forward. It's going to make you a better FFA member, a better person. And that's our main goal here, is to help to continue to foster and grow high quality young adults, because you're very soon going to go out into the world and you're going to be on your own to be adults and to be successful. And hopefully this can play a small part in that and helping you to reach that success. So that's what we want to help you out so that you can reach those goals. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions to us. Before we finish up, last call candidates, ag teachers who are on the call, do any of you have questions that we could answer for you? Ms. Dodd, do you have anything before we go?
No, sir, I'm good.
And Caitlin, I'm not sure if you're still here. Do you have anything before we wrap up?
I just wanted to say good luck to everybody, and and just enjoy the process.
All right. So make sure you check your emails tomorrow. Again, I'm going to try to get it to you tomorrow morning, but at some point tomorrow, you're going to have the essay and the area program plan sent to your email. If your email kicks back, your ag teachers are being copied on this also. So I'm going to send your ag teachers a text message to let them know that it went through so that you have access to it. So just make sure you check your emails, follow along with the deadlines, and everything you'll need will be there. So until then, if you have any questions, make sure you reach out. We're excited for you. And I'm very happy that you've chosen to run for area office. I think it's going to be a good experience for you. Y'all have a good evening. Make sure you let us know if you have any questions.